When best practices are put in place, obviously productivity will be enhanced. I want to especially welcome you again to this episode of our series of broadcasts as we discuss another important topic as far as oil palm cultivation and agriculture in general is concerned. I still remain Emmanuel Ugbinaka, a consultant of agriculture, specifically soil science and land management. And with great delight, I'm happy to be affiliated with Silvawell Limited, a company that has a foresight into sustainability in terms of their approach to doing business. This episode, we are going to be discussing best practices for oil palm estate management. Of course, this is real estate business, but a step higher than the nominal by the integration of agriculture into it. And that makes it the agro real estate investment platform. And this is what we're going to be discussing today, the best practices that are involved and that are expected of managers of business of this nature. First, what is best management practice? Now, best management practice, BMP, as we put it in short, are simply practices that operate under legal framework with a view of conserving nature and improving on profitability. So there are three key things in my definition of best practices. Now, every practice that is qualified to be referred to as BMP must operate, number one, under the legal framework of the environment that is domiciled in. Number two, must put in view the conservation of nature. And then number three, the profitability of every investor. I would say that any management practice that does not operate under the legal framework, putting into consideration conservation of nature and improving on profitability, is not qualified to be referred to as best practice or best practices. So best management practices focus on the following. Let me run through. Number one, BMPs focuses on protection of nature. Number two, best management practice must focus on the preservation of soil fertility. Number three, focus on minimizing use of chemicals. Number four, best management practice focuses on excellent processing. Best management practice also focuses on controlled and minimal environmental impact. And BMP also focuses on commitment to advanced technology. So for there to be adoption of best practices, all of these things are under focus. Now, best practices in oil palm estate management, we have numerous benefits. One, we decrease the land area required per tons of product. What does that mean? When best practices are put in place, obviously productivity will be enhanced. Even if you have 50 hectares of land with poor management practice, you may not be able to get as much product as someone that have less than 50 hectares of land with adoption of best management practices. This is what I'm talking about. So best management practice will make you to get more from little area of land. That is not all. If best management practices are put in place and that reduce the area of land required per tons of product, that means the use of fertilizer per unit area is also reduced. That also means deforestation is also reduced. That is it. 5 hectares of land cultivated with your oil palm, and you have knowledgeable managers like Silvawell Limited managing that small area of land with the best management practices. You are going to get more dividend or more profit or more return on investing in that area of land compared to somebody who might have a large expanse of land with poor management approach. And I'm saying that when this best management practice is adopted, one, I said, it reduces the land area. Number two, if the land area is reduced, that means the use of fertilizer and other chemical per unit area is also reduced. That also means that deforestation or the need to want to expand or go to other places is also reduced. And if this is in place, then we are also contributing to the protection of the environment. The environment will be conserved, and in the long run, we mitigate climate change impact, as we have discussed in one of our broadcasts. Now, best management practices, if we narrow it to the cultivation of oil palm, best management practice, it cut across the following area. Number one, selection of site. Best management practice is not only concerned with harvesting or concerned with the management. It begins from the selection of sites. So in selection of site, we are going to be looking again at what is expected. Of course, like I said in previous broadcasts, that rainforests or reserves are not best option for such operation because of the sensitivity it will have on the environment. That information helps you to be able to choose a site that is suitable for that purpose. And even though we are concerned more with abandoned farmland and degraded lands which can be worked on, again, you will not be eager to select a land that is beyond regeneration. So best management practice begin with site selection by not going into an area that is termed reserved. Another area that we can adopt the best management practice is choice of variety. That is another area that one needs to be careful in. And that is why in Silvawell Limited, I'm very much aware that they are careful of their choice of varieties. Now, I did a broadcast on introduction to oil palm, and I did say that there are different varieties of oil palm. You could subscribe and then get to listen to that broadcast. There is a kind of variety of the oil palm that will produce more for you. If you want to get more from a small area of land, then you must go for the best variety. Number three, land cultivation. Best management practice also comes in when it comes to land cultivation. Clearing, slashing, and burning is not a best management practice. Now, I've taken time to talk about this in one of my broadcasts. So, land cultivation also require best management approach. And if you subscribe and listen to our previous broadcast, you will see how that can be done. Another area that best management approach also comes in is in the planting itself. That has to do with right spacing. Also, in my introduction to the oil palm cultivation, we talked about the right space for your oil palm, which I told you is 9 by 9 by 9 in triangular form. And I said of an hectare, we have about 145 plants per hectare. We've seen a scenario whereby most farmers do not have this knowledge, and then they just go anywhere they find the oil palm seedlings. They can even uproot it from plantations. They just go to plantations where you have it growing, they uproot it. When you invest with such people, you will not get the maximum return on investment. Those are the people that will tell you that, oh, the oil palm, my oil palm plantation is not producing well, I'm not getting the required production. Why? Because they went to plantations and get seedlings that were growing on the floor of the plantations and have them planted in their plot as if they were planting maize. Everything jam-packed, no uniform spacing. The recommended spacing of best practice is not followed. And so when you have that done, of course, you're going to see that your productivity is going to be affected. So best management practice also involves that the recommended spacing for the oil palm is followed. And the recommendation plant population per hectare of land is also followed. Another area that best management practice also comes in is in the area of crop protection. Protection against pest, protection against diseases. Now, the best management approach in crop protection is the adoption of what we call the IPM. The IPM is a short acronym for Integrated Pest Management. We have a situation, like I said in one of our broadcasts, that some farmers get chemicals and use without prescription excessively in an attempt to control pests. That is not a best management practice or best management approach. When you are trying to protect that crop, oil palm, from pests, from diseases, then the IPM, Integrated Pest Management, is adopted. The Integrated Pest Management is a system that integrates three key ways of managing pests: the physical method, the biological method, and the chemical method. These three methods are integrated together in controlling your pests. In doing that, you don't end up paying attention to one aspect that will be detrimental to your crops and even your soil. Ranging from fencing. When we looked at introduction to oil palm cultivation, we talked about that. Weeding, all those are physical methods of controlling pests. I said one of the best way to control pests, especially rodents, from your oil palm plantation is to ensure that there is continuous weeding. And then you have biological control, where organisms can be used to checkmate the increase in population of other organisms that may be considered as pests. And then you have the chemical control method, which should be used according to precision in order to avoid the excessive utilization, not to result to detrimental effect. And then another area where best management practice comes in is preserving soil fertility. Now, in oil palm cultivation, best management approach requires that you provide for ways, systems, methods of preserving the fertility of the soil. Because I did said that as production continue over time, there will be a decline in fertility of the soil. And so if systems are not put in place to replenish the soil, you begin to have the incidence of reduced productivity. More premium should be placed on organic fertilization more than the use of chemical fertilizers, as the case might be. Organic fertilization can range from what we refer to as FYM, which is a farmyard manure. Farmyard manure is talking about waste from animals. Waste from animals could be incorporated into the soil. Those are organic ways of replenishing the soil, which have limited hazard on your crop or the environment. And then we talk about the green manure. The green manure is a system whereby instead of slash and burn, you have slash and incorporate. So those vegetations can be reincorporated by way of decomposition back into the soil, and this can help to enhance the fertility of the soil. And we also have compost. Now, the oil palm is a crop that produce high level of biomass. You have the palm fronds, which are the branches now that are continuously prune from the plant, and then you have the harvested bunches after the bunching or removing your FABD, the fresh fruit from the bunch. Then those bunches, some people just throw those bunches away because their focus is in synthetic fertilizers. Those bunches and those palm fronds can be made into compost, made to decompose, and added, recuperated back into the soil. And these have a way of replenishing the soil nutrients. The large biomass from these byproducts can be recuperated. And instead of relying so much on synthetic fertilizers, this could augment favorably. Remember, this also take into consideration the environment. And now we look at the soil protection. BMP, best management practice, also come to play in the area of soil protection. Like I said, the nominal farmer do not take these things into consideration. And for any reputable agro firm that thinks about the future, takes these best practices into consideration, like the case of Silvawell, we see that in soil protection, we are not just interested in how we get money from that area of land. We are also concerned on how the soil can be protected. And in doing that, we are talking about erosion and soil damage prevention. Some of these scenarios or events that can lead to degradation of the soil can be prevented. Such natural methods, best practices that can be used to mitigate these events, again, is the cover cropping and the intercropping. That is why we stated this from the onset, that integrating this with the oil palm cultivation is not just trying to make more profit from it alone, but also looking at conserving the soil in the long run. Now, best management practice has a role to play in harvesting and processing, as we earlier discussed in one of our broadcasts. Excellent processing and harvesting also require best management approach. One of the things that I'm going to discuss with you, my viewer, maybe subsequently when we are looking at agricultural policy in Nigeria as a case study, we'll see that although Nigeria, in comparison with top palm oil producing country like Malaysia and the rest, Nigeria has, in terms of land area cultivated with oil palm, has a larger area compared to this country. So the problem we have is yield, is productivity, and we can trace this a little bit to how our processing, how our harvesting is actually carried out. And that is why we took time to educate you on the best approach when it comes to harvesting and processing of the oil palm. When this best approach is adopted, we see a situation whereby our yield can be increased. Because what we see in our local production environment is wastage. It's a situation whereby the processing is not technologically driven, and because it's not technologically driven, you see there is no maximization. We don't maximize what some of these products have to offer. So excellent processing and harvesting is another area that best management practice also comes in. And then commitment to advanced technology. Best management practice require an advanced technology, and here have to be a commitment to that effect. This best management approaches will help, like I said, because it puts three key things into consideration. It puts the legal framework into consideration. It puts the conservation of nature and profitability into consideration. Now, I want to conclude by saying that the best management practices takes into consideration nature way of replenishment, legal framework, profitability, return on investment. I will want to confidently say that Silvawell Limited represent. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can get all the information that we have been dishing out. And also to mention that the Silvawell Limited, all of this information, they are informations that the company is well acquainted with. And this information guides their operation to see that best practices are followed, to ensure that there is a consistency in our production, and to ensure that our investment get adequate return on their investment. Thank you. Until we meet again, where we'll be discussing on other issues that border around this topic. Stay blessed.